And good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to a matinee edition of We Got Next. I'm Rickey Hampton, along with former Milwaukee Bucks center Paul Mokeski, Big Mo, coming to you with a mid afternoon session of We Got Next. Hope everybody's doing well wherever you are today. Paul and I thought we would get on here early uh, so we can all sit back and enjoy the NCAA championship game tonight between Utah and San Diego State. I know that's the two
Well,
teams everybody expected to be in the
yeah,
big game, Mo.
yeah.
How you doing, big fella?
I'm good, man. It's there's a lot to talk about. We all want to see the game tonight. So, a fourth seed against a fifth seed. First time in the history of college basketball, and first time ever there's not been one number one seed in the Final Four. Usually there's two or three, and that had to go with the early upsets. So, it's going to be interesting though, because there's great stories. UConn does have a history of winning some championships, and basketball wise, San Diego State has never been there, never won a championship, but their coach has. So you know, it's a different kind of interest. Once Kansas was out of it, who cares anymore? But you know, UConn's a really good
Spoken like a
team.
true Jayhawk.
Absolutely. I mean, that I'm sure there's some Purdue fans and Houston fans and all those the number one seeds that are thinking the same way. But I think it's going to be an interesting game. I think UConn a really good team. Um, uh, but they have not had a close game in the tournament. So they've won every game by 15 points or more. That's going to tell if this game is close at the end. We're going to see, how they feel at the end of the game. And San Diego State, when you look at their roster, they have the 8 players that really play. They have 8 seniors and 2 juniors. That's what they have. Matt Bradley came alive in the next game. He had a bad game going into the Final Four, and I told people, watch out. He's going to have 20 plus points this game because great players, good scorers always come back, and he did. Um, San Diego State has size, shot blocking, and like they say, it's 6 seniors and 2 juniors, right? And UConn is the opposite. They have a really good team too, but they have 2 seniors and 3 freshmen, and a sophomore and a junior. And their best player is a freshman, Sanago, he's probably a one and done. So I think in the Final Four, I always say experience and maturity can go a long way. So this is going to be a perfect test of 2 pretty equally matched teams. So who's going to win? The younger team with a younger coach, by the way, less experienced coach, or the senior-laden team with juniors and an experienced coach that's been there before. So it's going to be interesting.
Hey, Mo. What? I don't know if you've heard this, but I've heard some people they're upset because, and you played at one of the Blue Bugs, Kansas. We don't have a Kansas, we don't have a Kentucky, we don't have the powerhouse programs. That what is that bad because we got a San Diego State? How do you feel about having these sort of upstart teams?
I think it's different now. I think 10 or 15 years ago, yes, probably, because really the fan base for Kansas's and North Carolina's and Duke's is bigger than the fan bases
Yeah.
for San Diego State's and even UConn. So, NCAA is about money, right? So it's got about TV rating and who's going to tune in and watch these games. But
Yeah.
anymore, like I've said before on our show, basketball in college and really in NBA is becoming more of an individual sport. I mean by that is fans and people that are watching are more interested in individuals like LeBron James or Embiid or something. They follow that player wherever they go rather than the team. So I think it's changed a little bit. So will it hurt it? Maybe a little bit, but not like it would have before. And quite frankly, this is the way it's going to go. You have the transfer portal and NIL money. So this is the new NCAA. With the transfer portal, you're going to have players move all over the place. They're transferring. I think they're changing it to only 2 times now, but there's players that transferred 4 times already, and they're going where they think they can play and fit in. So when you're a college coach, you don't recruit high school players anymore. You don't recruit prep school guys. You go into the transfer portal, and there's over 1,000 players in there right now as we speak that other coaches can go pick out guys that played at that level, played there, and then you can plug them into your teams. And that's just the way it's going to be. So you're going to see more Florida Atlantics, San Diego States. You're going to see more of them in the Final Four because of the transfer portal. And then the equalizer could be NIL money. That the bigger schools can offer better NIL money because they have bigger alumni that have more money to give to these kids to stay in school or come to their school. So I know a couple people right now, their kids are in school, they're playing somewhere, and they're in the transfer portal, and teams are talking about, well, you can come here and make 200, 300, 400,000 in NIL money, where you're making 20 where you're at. So that's going to become a factor of where these players play. That looks like Michael Jordan's shot right there. I mentioned that.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. When that happened, I told the people I was watching, that looks like Michael Jordan back in the day. But I think you're going to see more of this in the Final Four, more 4 seeds, 5 seeds, 8 seeds, because of the transfer portal. And it is what it is. Whether you agree with it or not, it is what it is. That's what it's going to be.
I heard somebody said 2 weeks ago you could have got San Diego State playing in the finals for plus 10,000. I don't know how the Vegas lines go, but that sounds like a lot.
I know someone that had Florida Atlantic. If they won it all, he bet $100 he would have won 10,000, I think. But he did that early on. So you have to pick these teams early on. But as the tournament goes on, you can see a lot of these teams like UConn and San Diego State, they have talent. I mean, sure they've lost some games. I looked at like San Diego State. They're 32-6. They lost 2 of their games early in the tournament in Hawaii, and guess who they lost to? Arizona and Arkansas, 2 top 5 teams. That's who they lost to. Then along the way they lost to UNR here in Reno, out in Reno, and Boise State. But those are, they're playing a decent. They lost to tough teams, and UConn lost 6 games in the middle of their season, which pretty much in a normal year would end your season. If you lost 6 games in the middle of your season, you're pretty much done. But they were all 2 Big East teams, right? So those are tough losses, and they're on the roll at the right time playing. They've been playing the best basketball, UConn, for the last month, right? Playing at the right time, playing, getting on a roll at the right time, and that's where they're at. So this is going to be an interesting game tonight. I look forward to it.
And I think something you said when you talked about the transfer portal, it kind of fits into this. The power schools can't recruit all the good players anymore. I mean, you get good players that go other places, and especially those good players who aren't NBA caliber, but they're very good college players that are in their junior and senior year.
The best team, well, the Blue Bloods, Kentucky, Kansas, Duke, whatever you want to say, North Carolina, the Blue Bloods are the only teams that recruit top players in high school. They're the one and dones, right? So they can go get those guys because they can come and offer them, $500,000, $1 million in NIL money to come play for them. So, but the other team, San Diego State, they're not recruiting in high school. They're looking at the transfer portal to get players that from Kansas, from Duke, from North Carolina. Kansas has, I think, 4 players from this year's team that are in the transfer portal right now. So, that's what San Diego State's. That's what Florida Atlantic's. They look at Kansas's and North Carolina's and Duke's and Arizona's and look at the players that have been there for a year or two are not happy and they want to come down and play on your team and be a starter. And they turn into good players. That's what it is. The Kentucky's always, if Calipari's there, Kentucky's always going to recruit high school 1 and done 5 stars. That doesn't mean you're going to get to the Final Four though with those players.
Right. Yeah, it is really interesting. And I totally agree with you. I think this whole thing is changing, and we'll only see more of what we've seen this year.
Yeah, this is like Kansas, Grady Dick, the 6'8" shooting kid, he had a really good year, and he's going in the draft. He's projected at being 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th pick, whatever. So you're talking about millions of dollars. However, a guy like that can think, okay, or I could go back to Kansas and play for $1 million, right? Or whatever I can get in NIL, which is probably $1.5 million right now, and enjoy another year of college. That's a legitimate choice.
Yeah. Well, who you like tonight? UConn.
Unless something drastic happens, I have UConn. San Diego State, one of the best defensive teams, but they've struggled against better offensive teams. UConn is very deep, and I'm going with experience, right? UConn has the experience. They have 6 seniors. No, I'm sorry, it's the other way around. San Diego State has 6 seniors and 2 juniors, but their talent level, I don't think, overcomes the talent of UConn and the depth of UConn. You're looking at it, UConn has 5 or 6 players that are averaging, close to double digits, which is unusual for college. Where San Diego State kind of relies on Bradley? Yeah, Bradley a lot and Trammell. But I think it's going to be a good game. I wouldn't. I don't know what the point spread is, but if it comes, I will take UConn in a blowout, and I'll take San Diego State if it's close. How about that?
Okay. And it wouldn't surprise you if San Diego State won this game.
No, not at all.
Yeah, that's what we are. That's what you want. Well, it'll be fun tonight. I know everybody will be tuned in to check it out. Yesterday we had the women's final between LSU and, speaking of the transfer portal, Kim Mulkey, LSU used it to perfection to get their championship. Kim Mulkey came in and she had 4 players and brought in a bunch of transfers. They came together, had a great season, went 33-2, made it 34-2 yesterday with a victory over upstart Iowa, which went on a great run, led by Caitlin Clark, who's just a tremendous player. And I thought the women's was that whole Final Four was very entertaining, Mo. And honestly, I don't watch a lot of women's basketball, but I found myself watching some of these games.
Yeah, I was trying to look it up, but we'll continue on with the transfer portal, right? LSU, I think, won 4 games 2 years ago.
Yeah, 9. They won 9. They were 9 and 24.
Yeah, so in 2 years, you turned a program from 9 and 24 to 30, whatever. And that's the transfer portal. That's what college basketball is about now. And so, you're a coach like she is. you've been around for a while and have a reputation, and you have connections all over. You can get 3, 4, 5 players transferred immediately and be an impact and be in a Final Four and win a championship in 2 years. That used to never happen. You couldn't do that. You had to recruit players out of high school. You had to have them mature after a couple of years and blend in with your seniors. It took 3, 4, 5 years to turn a program around. Anymore with transfer portal, it's 2 years.
Yeah, and like you said, it does not matter if you like that or don't like it, because this is what it is now.
Yeah, this is what it is, and how about a clash of two different styles and yesterday and I thought the games before that the first couple games were more exciting than yesterday, but what's really exciting is I lived and worked in that arena in American Airlines in Dallas. I know how big it is. I know how exciting it gets, and it was interesting, and I was happy that it was packed, and now's the time for women's basketball to break away in college and get their own TV deal and stuff for the Final Four, because look at people are watching it, people are paying attention, and they filled an 18,000 seat arena. So and quite frankly, women's basketball I don't watch a lot either, but it's it used to be like mostly jump shots or low post moves and not much running and no pull up jump all that stuff. But these young ladies are just doing outstanding stuff. Dribble step backs and transition threes and drives to the basket, spin moves and all that stuff. The dunking's not there, but quite frankly, I think dunking's overrated anyway. So it's a great show for women's college basketball and women's basketball in general.
No, dunking's overrated. All the young folks watching the show are going, Big Mo, what are you talking about?
And I mean, really, it's exciting play. Even in an NBA game, you're looking at, each team will have 100 possessions in an NBA game. You're looking at each team will get 6, 7 dunks maybe. So, come on.
No, I totally get it. I totally get what you're saying. In this game, that's a great pass by Caitlin Clark. Iowa in the semifinal against South Carolina, Iowa just packed it back in and let South Carolina shoot, and they were often hesitant to shoot the ball, and when they shot, they could not make shots, and they really struggled with their normal power game inside because it was so congested. And one difference I see in the women's game and the men's game, and it's just purely physical, the women don't finish around the basket as well as the men because they're not as high around the basket. So I think that congestion really bothers.
Well, that young lady right there changed the game. She won the game. She had 21 points at halftime, I think.
Carson, yeah.
Yeah, and she they talk about the other players. She won that game because when Iowa was close and battling, she was knocking down threes, open or not open, like that, and she banked in one at the end of the half to put them up 17, I think. And that's what set the tone. And as far as laying off people, that's a scouting report thing. So if you have a team with 5 players on it and you're guarding them and 2 can't shoot, you should guard them on their 3-point line. You don't have to. I want them to shoot. So on the offensive end, then you better, like LSU did, they prepared for that. So we just saw it a minute ago, a highlight of them backing off a player at the top of the key, and instead of shooting that shot and probably missing, they drove to the basket, had a spin move layup. That's the way to combat that. The way not to combat that is to shoot the shot, because you're open for a reason. You're open for a reason because you can't shoot. That's why you're open. You can't make shots.
And we saw that in the NBA not long ago. Draymond Green just gave Russell Westbrook 15 footers.
Of course, well, a little farther than that, but yeah, I mean, and 15-footer, any NBA player should be able to make that. But it's a guy like, do I want you to shoot? Do I want Russell Westbrook to shoot a three or drive to the basket? Which one would I pick?
Oh, shoot, three.
Of course. So so you're gonna sit there, and that's a physical way of pretty much taunting someone. Go ahead, shoot it. Go ahead, man. You're open.
Yeah.
Shoot it. I'm gonna leave you open. I'm not gonna block your shot. You play pickup ball. That's what they say. There's a reason they did, because you can't make a shot.
Now, see, Carson threw that one in there. You know it's your half when you just throw one in there off the backboard, Mo.
That's a heat check, man. And but I mean, and LSU had better shooters. They had better shooters, and they had better drivers. So you couldn't do what you were doing the last game. But that technique's been around a long time. Shoot, I mean, it's just pretty blatant because you see it on TV now. But in an NBA scouting report, you have hard closeouts chased off the 3-point line. You have contest 3-point shooters, and you have average 3-point shooters, and then you have guys you want to shoot the three, and that's how you close out to them. On a scouting report, you should know who you're closing out to and how you should close out.
Hey, Mo, help me, and our viewers understand, for one, the competitive nature of high-level basketball. This was, national championship. The trash talking that goes on. And I think trash talking has changed from the days you played in the 80s and 90s to where we are today. Because I know you guys talk, but you guys talk to each other. It seems to me that the trash talk that goes on now is almost for social media.
Yeah, I mean, well, you can tell because now players, NBA, WNBA, college, whatever, they have their TikTok, Instagram, all that, and if they get offended on that, they talk back to those people. I mean, and in my opinion, why would you do that? These people aren't worthy to talk back to or trash talk to. It doesn't make any sense. But in my day, if you trash talk on the court, which people did, I mean, Larry Bird's one of the best, Gary Payton, all of them, but you better be able to back it up, either with your play or physicality, because, if you don't, and you better not, if you say the wrong thing to the wrong guy back in the day, you're going to fight. We're going to have a fight, so you better be able to back it up either with your play or your fists, or we're going to have a problem. Or like I would do, sort of like, okay, Ricky, you're going to trash talk me and hit a jumper in my face. Next time you come to the lane, I'm going to elbow you in that jaw. How you feel about that? I'm gonna elbow you in the jaw and then I'm gonna raise my hand. So how do you want to play that? So
I wouldn't feel too good about catching one of your bones, Mo.
But that's the way it was. Yeah, it was, but it's not that way anymore. You can't do that. You can't. I mean, my favorite thing in the NBA almost was setting picks on unknowledgeable guards in the back court. That are picking up City Moncrief full court. I'm going to go up to them in the full court and set a pick that he doesn't see. He's going to hit me in the chest and crumble at my feet, and then I'm going to run down the floor. But you can't do any of that now. So I think trash talking has gotten worse. I think people that shouldn't trash talk are. That doesn't mean there should be no trash talking, but that's the same. If you can't shoot, you shouldn't shoot. If you can't make a shot, you shouldn't shoot. But some of it's getting out of hand. I mean, and talk about sensitive players, when Westbrook is getting offended that someone in the stands calls him Westbrook. I mean, come on, man. Fee Fi Fo Fanny, whatever that song was. Oh, come on, man. Are you kidding me? Westbrook is what? They call me Westbrook. That's a mark on my name, and that's not true. Come on, man. Grow up. If you're making $40 million and you're a star, people are gonna say what they say. Now, fans should, there's crossing the line. derogatory, racial,
Right.
threats against family, violence. That okay, but Westbrook, come on, man. Come
Right.
on, you don't know what people called us back in the day. You kind of ignored it. And if I was a fan, if I was an NBA fan paying good money to sit down by the court, and I called Westbrook, and they kicked me out of the game, I would sue Westbrook. I would sue the league. I would sue the team. I would sue. You can't kick me out for saying Westbrook, and they do now. That's but part of it is too is the society, right? People on TikTok and Instagram, they feel that they have the right to talk back, and now it's going into the games, into the stands even more. Where if I'm sitting on the floor, I can say whatever I want to you. That's not true, but this society is leading into that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the thing of yesterday, you had a great run, a great tournament, and most of the conversation now is talking about the trash talk that went on
I don't
after
see.
the.
I don't see you, Ricky. Can't see you.
You can't see me.
No, that's
Oh, oh, oh.
I can't see you.
Instead of the great play that it was a great tournament for women's basketball, like you said. So let's move on by that, and it's good to see the game growing, man. And
But I mean, in my opinion on that, I know there's a lot out there that, well, it's who she was and who she is and all that stuff, and what's her name did to other people, rightfully so. And if you watched it, she didn't react to it, right?
no,
The girl, because she knew in her mind someday it's going to backfire on her. She knew that.
yeah,
And I don't have any problem with that. But I do have a problem with the way the young lady from LSU did it. She did it blatantly at a free throw line when the game was already over, right?
yeah,
The game was
yeah,
already over, and you're staring at her at the free throw line and doing it. Okay. But then the one that got me was at the end of the game where an opponent, a worthy opponent, even though maybe too much trash talking from her, but she's a worthy opponent, is walking to her bench after losing the biggest game of her life, and then you go in between her and her bench and stop her from walking to her bench and do that in her face. That's stepping across the line. Now, if she's walking to her face and if she's walking to her bench and you're at half court and you see her and you do that, which is going to be on TV anyway, right? Okay, whatever. But you don't go over and stop her from walking to her bench when she just lost that game and do that. The timing is everything on that to me.
But my thing is Clark's game. Look, you beat her, but she got game. I mean, and that's the thing that you guys did when you guys played. Hey, you've been battling with MJ. You beat him, or he beat you, but you gonna give that dude his respect
Sure.
for the effort and the skill he showed.
I
And
mean,
what I say, game recognizes game.
even during the game, we're talking crap and doing those signals, whatever you want to do. But at the end of the game, you would go shake hand or give them some dap. Hey, good game, man. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
You don't. That's why I'm saying timing is everything.
But I think you're right, because I think it says a lot about where we are today in society as much as anything, where everything has to be so confrontational.
And I don't think. I mean, that young lady is going to be a top pick in the WNBA, right?
Yeah,
Both of them.
yeah, they could be teammates one day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I don't know, but if I'm the LSU young lady, and I know every WNBA team is either here watching or watching on TV, I don't want to leave any question about I'm gonna have my personality, and I'm gonna be outspoken, and that's fine. But I don't want to cross the line where I put, you know what? Should we pick her first, second, third? I don't know. So you got to think about yourself and your own legacy too. I mean, I tell college players or G League players all the time. The first thing you need to do is clean up your social media, because that's what NBA and WNBA teams look at first. They have full-time people doing that. So if
So
you're
Mo, so something like that will go in the scouting report on
absolutely, for sure, yes. Competitive, brash, at some point, and sometimes may cross the line. That could be in there. And all you need is something little, right? So, that's why I tell the players, don't have anything questionable on your social. Don't, people, scouts go to games, and they watch you play, but they watch how you act on the bench, how you act in the huddle, how you act to referees, how you act to teammates. Really, we haven't got there yet, but I heard some stuff about Luka in Dallas with the Mavericks of how he doesn't seem happy and he's pouting and he jumps on his teammates. Well, guess what? He did that 4 years ago when he was playing in the Euro Championships. Not a surprise.
Yeah. That makes sense, man.
Everything's on your scouting report. Everything like in the NBA, they'll have multiple scouts go see the players play, and they'll write up their own reports. And one night, some player could have had a side look or argument with their coach, or had a problem in practice. That all goes in the reports.
Yeah, and that's why we were talking a couple of weeks ago. Cam Newton had a workout down in Auburn, was throwing the ball. They said he looked great throwing the ball and all that's in shape. And I was saying then, and I'm saying now, that's all well and good because Cam's only, I think he's 32, 31, 32. But I was saying then, nobody's going to take Cam. There's no doubt in my mind he could be a backup in the NFL. But I don't want to. They don't want to deal with all the other stuff he's going to bring with him.
We talk about that all the time. Okay, he'd be an awesome backup and could step in, but would he accept that? No.
Yeah.
You're going to hear him all the time. I should be starting. I mean, it's not how talented you are; it's how you fit in with my team. You could be the most talented player in the world, but if you don't fit in with my team, let's go back to Luka and Kyrie in Dallas. They're both.
We're going to get to that when we get to the NBA.
But they're both two of the talented players in the league, but they don't fit together. So I'm not looking for a backup quarterback. I'm not looking for the most talented quarterback. I'm looking for someone that fits in with my scheme and will be a backup. I tell guys all the time when I had teams, in the G League or whatever, I tell them at the beginning of training camp, listen, I got 18 guys in camp. I'm not looking for the 10 best players. I'm not looking for the 10 best players. I'm looking for the 10 players that make up the best team.
Wow, that's a great quote.
Yeah, so I'm not. You need to fit into,
That is a great quote.
And that's where
from the book of Mo, not the 10 best players, but 10 best players that make up the best team. I love that.
Yeah, the 10 players that make up the best team. I mean, that's the 12 or 15, whatever you're talking about in college or whatever. I mean, with the 10, you put the 5 best players ever in basketball in the world, Michael Jordan and LeBron and whoever the hell you want to, and they will lose to a good team because they're not a team. Put 5 of the best point guards, that are one of the very best players. They're not going to win.
Hey, let's get to the association, the National Basketball Association, and we may as well start in Dallas and start in the wild west. where, man, if you lose one game, you can drop 3 or 4 spots. But I do want to start in Dallas. They are currently 37-42, lost last night to Atlanta. They lost 3 straight, 3-7. They're currently in the 11th spot, and a game out of the 10th spot. They're 37-42. Oklahoma City's 38-41. Minnesota's 39-40 in the 9th spot. But they have gone backwards since acquiring Kyrie Irving.
They went from 4th to 11th in about a month and a half.
That is stunning. That's stunning.
Yeah, that's perfect. What we were talking about. Those two pieces don't fit together. Not only on the court, but their personalities don't fit together. They're both alphas. They're both want to have the ball in their hands. They both want to take the last shot. And that's okay, but you have to have one guy that's going to back down and say, okay, I'm going to be Scottie Pippen, But those guys, that's not in their personality. And they gave up a couple good players. Weren't they in the West Finals last year?
Yes.
They didn't pay Brunson. They let him go for nothing. They didn't pay Brunson. And then they sold 3 of their big pieces from last year to get Kyrie to have one last Hail Mary to try and get into the finals this year. It doesn't work that way. And that's not on Kyrie, it's not on Luka, it's not on Jason Kidd, it's on Mark Cuban and the general manager. That's who it's on. To make that move. Not a good move, man.
Well, is that something? How would they have? What would that conversation have gone on? No, because would they look at? I know they would say, okay, how do we project these guys fitting?
Well, first of all, you got trade deadline. Everybody's calling everybody. Everybody's lying. Every GM is lying to you. Everyone you talk to on the phone is lying to you. You got to understand that. So first of all, you have to decide: where are we at now? So we've had 50 games or whatever to evaluate where is this team at right now. Barring injuries or whatever, we have to put that. We have to evaluate where are we at now. Where are we? Are we first round exit? Are we get to the West Finals again? Are we get to the NBA Finals? Or we win a championship? Those are the levels you're going to look at. Or are we a lottery pick team? So there's your levels, right? Are we a lottery team? Are we a playoff team? Are we deep run in the playoffs? Are we an NBA championship? That's 4 levels. Where are we? So you get with Mark Cuban, you get with the general manager, you get with the vice president of basketball operations, you get with player personnel, and you get with your head coach. And where are we? Let's look at our roster. Where are we now? Where can we be? Where do you see us? Jason Kidd, where do you see us? And get all the info, and then you decide, okay, do we want to make a little move like the Celtics had with Rodman and a couple other guys? Or do we want to make a big move and see if we can make a play for this? Because right now, we look at our team, and we're going to lose in the first round of playoffs. That's what we are, right? So that's what we are. So do we want to go ahead and go down, or do we want to make a move that can get us back up into maybe a top 4? And if we make that move, what move are we willing to give up? What players will we give up? What will we get back? I mean, I've said this before. Hey, we should. People say this all the time. Let's trade for AD. Let's trade. Yeah, but you trade for AD or whoever. Just put a name out there: KD, AD, whatever. And you got to give up. You got to give up 3 of your best starters. So sure, you're going to get a good player, and he's going to come and play for you. But who's he playing with? Your team's not better. That's the thing that really, when the Phoenix Suns did what they did this year, they kept Booker, they kept Chris CP, and they kept Ayton. Yeah. They kept and they added one of the best players in the league in KD. Yeah. They didn't give up. They gave up some good players, but not their main players. That's a big move. That's a logical move. But
let me say this. Now, when they made that move, they were fourth, and it's been the Wild West all year. Denver has been sitting pretty much at the top. Memphis has pretty much been what they are, but Memphis, they have so much drama. Nobody.
But they've got 8-2.
Yeah. So no. But I'm saying that in Dallas was probably thinking we can go get these guys. We can catch these guys.
Yeah, but it depends on what you have to give up for them. I mean, like
clearly they miscalculated. I mean,
but they didn't even hit the target. They're throwing darts at a bar and they didn't even hit the target. They hit the wall. I mean, and the Suns made that move. They're still fourth. KD's been hurt, and now they know if KD's healthy, they're not the fourth place team. They're top. They can compete with Denver.
Yeah.
All right. But when Dallas made that move and gave up the players that Dinwiddie and those guys, so we're gonna look at our. I keep telling you roster makeup, right? You got to be 8 or 9 deep to play in the playoffs to go, solid guys, and so now Dallas we used to have a deep team, not super talented, but we used to go 9-10 deep. Now we can go 6 deep because we gave up some of our best players to get one of the better players. But I mean, all that calculation comes in. I mean, one of the biggest faux pas ever that nobody even thinks about is one I was involved with when I was with the Mavericks, and Steve Nash was a free agent, and we had Dirk Nowitzki, Mike Finley. We had a really good team, and Steve Nash was one of the better point guards in the league for sure. But he had a bad back. He was struggling, and we saw it firsthand. And Cuban and the higher ups decided, hey, Steve's on his downfall, and with his back, and we're gonna have to make it. We can't pay him the hundreds of millions or whatever. So we're gonna change our roster. Well, it turned out that the very next year, Steve Nash was MVP of the league for the Phoenix Suns for 2 years in a row, and that next year, if we would have had Steve Nash on our team, we would have won a championship. We would have won. We went to the finals and lost to Miami. If we had Steve Nash, I would have a ring. So that was a miscalculation, big time, right? So it happens all the time. People don't notice it.
So Mo, you as a former employee of the Mavericks, you've said in those meetings, Cuban and the president of basketball operations going around the room. We're talking about trading for Kyrie. Mo, what you think?
No, I'm not. I'm not in that room. I'm not in that room. The only people in that room are Mark Cuban, the general manager, director of player personnel, and Jason Kidd. That's the only people in that room.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a different level. I'm not in that room.
But if they'd have asked you, Mo, you got 45 seconds to tell me what you think of this.
I would have brought out the positives of where we're at now, and where we can go, and I would have brought out not only basketball wise that Kyrie and Luka are the same player. They have to have the ball in their hands to be effective. They're not off the ball players. Just look at their game. They dribble, and they get points for themselves, and they create baskets, but they have to have the ball in their hands. And if we're counting on them to be on the floor to be impactful enough to get to the NBA Finals at the same time, one of them is going to be way, way less effective than they usually are because they don't have the ball in their hands. And now I would add in their personality. We know what Luka is. Luka's an alpha male. He always has been since he was a teenager playing with men, and he's not going to change. He wants to take the last shot. He wants to have the ball in his hands in the last play. He's not a good defender. So let's go to Kyrie. Kyrie wants to take the last shot. Kyrie wants to have the ball in the hand. Kyrie's not a good defender. Where in what world do we think these two can coexist in the backcourt and we can be successful in the playoff series? That would be my pitch.
And you know who has not played well since Kyrie got there? Hardaway.
Because he can't get the ball.
Hardaway has not. I mean, think about how well he played for them. He was He was one of them main guys. He Hardaway had, let's see, last night, he had 6 points.
That's sad, yeah. But that's the whole makeup of, and Kyrie and Luka played at the same time, right? You know, so I mean, you got to take. Then there's 30 NBA teams, and a lot of them they don't make good decisions. They don't want to listen. They get stubborn. They have egos in the way, and they don't make good decisions. I mean, you know, and there's not enough basketball minds in there. There's too many analytical minds in there. I mean, basketball is a numbers game, but it's also a heart and soul and basketball IQ game. I mean, that, you know, if I'm drafting players, you know, good, they have length and they have arm span and they can shoot and they're athletic and blah, blah, blah. You know, how competitive are they? What's their basketball IQ? Are they willing to learn? Do they listen? Do they consider coaching or coaching criticism? What do they consider? You know, do they want to get better? Is basketball one of their main things, or is Instagram followers their main thing? That's what I want to know. If I want to put $100 million in this dude, I want to know that. You know, and that's where your interviews at draft time are so important. Like I know Mavericks do. Most teams have sports psychologists that interview these players on video, and they ask them specific questions to see what answers they can get. You know, here's a question for you, and you can answer this. So this used to be one of the questions. So you're on our team now, Coach So-and-so. There's somebody on the Bulls that's killing us. Coach So-and-so says, "Hey, Ricky, get in the game and go take that dude out." What do you do?
I'm going to go in the game. I'm going to play him hard and try to foul him. I'm going to try to hurt him.
Okay.
I'm going to be physical with him, though.
That's probably the right answer. Yeah, but you know, I'm going to take that sucker out, or no, that's not me. It's not my personality. I'm just going to play my game. Wrong answer.
Yeah.
The answer is what you did. I'll go in there. I'll be physical with them. I'm not going to make it easy on him. I'm not going to hurt him. I'm not going to try and hurt him. You know? Right. But hey, if we collide and he gets hurt, that's the way it goes.
Right. I mean, yeah. Absolutely. Well, let's move on. Hey, to a team that I thought I'm shocked at how they have turned this thing around, and clearly, while the trade in Dallas has backfired, the Lakers have been a different team since they made their move. And Anthony Davis is playing like a young, spry Anthony Davis, and they are now sitting in the number 7 spot at 40-38.
Yeah, I've talked about this for a year or more, or whatever. Westbrook never fit in with the Lakers, and then combine, and it's not his fault. Well, you're blaming Westbrook. You're blaming Kyrie. No, I'm not. It's not their fault, but it doesn't fit, right?
15.
So, you know, he never
blocks.
He didn't have role players around him that fit in either. You know, they had some young talent, but they're not veterans and they couldn't shoot. So they went out and made trades that brought in role players around those guys. They got rid of Westbrook. They don't have that headache anymore. They got guys around AD and LeBron that can shoot the ball more. They're more veteran. They play defense. The guys they brought in can play defense, and they accept their roles. So a lot of this has been because LeBron's been out, so it's the AD show. But since LeBron's come back, he scored 17 and 19. That's perfect. That's perfect. And they're going to be a team that's going to be dangerous in the playoffs. They're only a half a game out of the 6th spot. They want to get out of the play-in. 7, 8 are in the play-in with 9 and 10. If they can move up ahead of Golden State and or the Clippers, which is no small task because there's only 3 or 4 games left. So unless you're playing those teams that are ahead of you, you're not going to move ahead of them. Because you're going to win a game, they're going to lose a game, you're going to lose a game. It's going to be what it is. But if you play them, that's a doubler. So not only do you take a game away from, if they play the Golden State Warriors and beat them, they would leapfrog them in the spot, or the Clippers. So I don't know what their schedule is, but the Lakers are no joke anymore. And, LeBron's playing on a foot. I think it's really messed up, and he's going to pay for it like I did later. But they're a team to watch. So you look at the Wild Wild West right now, Ricky, and remember about a month ago we're only talking about Denver. Denver's the team.
Yeah.
You're looking at the first round. Denver would play either the Lakers, New Orleans, Minnesota, or Oklahoma City. Memphis would play either Lakers, New Orleans, Memphis, Minnesota, or Oklahoma City. The Suns would play the Clippers or Golden State, and Sacramento would play the Lakers or Golden State. So let's talk about a Suns Clippers series in the first round. Or Sacramento Kings have to play the Lakers in the first round. I mean, that's the first round. And then it's going to even out after that. But to me, Denver wants the Lakers to get out of the playoff play-in. They want them to get up because if the Lakers aren't in the play-in, then that means New Orleans, Minnesota, OKC, or somebody else. That's their first round, and their second round also is probably Memphis, or Sacramento.
And you know what I see? What I see with the Lakers, James has an ego as big as anybody, but he is smart enough to know that Anthony Davis is rolling, and he has no problem beating him. He had 18 points and 11 assists last night. I bet you 8 of those assists went to Anthony Davis.
And I think he had 10 or 11 rebounds, so he had a triple-double.
Yeah, he had a triple-double, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's...
And at this point in his career, what does LeBron want to do? Score more points? He's already scored the most points in the history. Or does he want to win another championship? He wants to win the chip, and that's he knows that. He's one of the smartest guys back on the court, off the court. He knows that. So the only way is to have AD as the man, and then help all the role players, and then hopefully maybe focus a little more on defense and being physical and being a rebounder, because that's what they need.
And since the trade, they have the top defensive rating in the NBA.
You know what? Because they traded for guys that play defense. It's magic. Darvin Ham isn't some whiz that put in a special defense now they made a trade. They're just got guys that want to and can play defense, but mostly it's 1-2. And it's very obvious. The teams, I don't know what they're averaging point wise, but the teams that win championships are teams that score a lot of points, but also they're teams that win the championship are teams that are in the top 5 in scoring and the top 5 in defense.
Yeah,
that's how. So the Golden State Warriors always were. That's what the Bucks were. That's how you win.
Yeah,
the Lakers can beat that.
Hey, and I give props to New Orleans too, because they turned this thing around. They're 7-3 in their last 10, 40-38. They're doing all of this without Zion Williamson. And Mo, I'm thinking maybe the guys on the roster have just said, hey, you know what? We can't wait for this guy anymore. Let's just go play.
For sure. And the coach told him, for sure. There's no other way to approach it. That's the worst thing for a coach and a team, is to be, is our star going to play tonight? Is he going to play tomorrow? Is he going to play this week? That's the worst thing that can happen. The best thing that can happen is say, hey, listen, he'll be ready when he's ready, which he might never be ready. But let's just be who we are right now. That's all we can control. We can't control when they're coming back, or we can control what we are and how we play. So let's just do that and see what happens.
Yeah. They're currently sitting in the A spot, but like I said, they could go from 8 to 10 just by losing one game. Consequently, they could move up because the Clippers are 41-38, Golden State 41-38, Lakers 40-38, New Orleans 40-38. That little area right there is in these next 3 or 4 games the teams had is going to really shape everything once the playoffs start.
Yeah, but like I said, with 3 games left, you have to play one of those teams, or you have to get really lucky, because right now, unless you're playing one of those teams ahead of you, it's not even going to matter probably.
I see the Lakers have Utah twice. The Clippers. The Lakers have Utah twice and the Clippers.
So that big game, the Clipper game, is a doubler. The Clipper game will tell if the Lakers are in the play-in or get the 6th or 5th spot. That game will tell. That one game.
They got Utah, Clippers, Phoenix, Utah to close the season.
So the Phoenix and the Clipper games are going to dictate where they end up, because they're playing. Both of those teams are ahead of them. So
the Clippers have the Lakers, Portland, and Phoenix.
Yeah. So the Lakers, and so all these games at the end, all those people out there that say games don't matter and NBA players don't play, these games will dictate how their playoffs go. And this is the last 3 games of the season. So, this is pretty unusual.
Yeah, I know it is, but that also speaks to the management of players' playing time. What is it? Low management. Yeah. I wonder, some of these coaches, man, I wish I'd have played so and so back in December.
Oh, of course they do. I mean,
when we had the Pistons and we thought we could have beat them and they beat us.
If the Lakers are 43-35, they're in the 4th spot.
That's crazy.
How about that? I mean, of course, and you don't think that way back then, but it all adds up, and it can bite you in the ass when the time is the worst. And the team that's going to be interesting and important for their whole franchise right now in the West is Oklahoma City, OKC, because OKC is the youngest team in the league. All their guys are 19, 20, 21 years old, super, super talented. They're sitting in the 10th spot. So they need to get, at this point in that franchise's history, they have a lot. They got like 800 draft picks and all this stuff. They need to get those young players in at least one play-in game and give them a taste of that so they can move on to next year. Then they'll have the decisions. How to trade their draft picks, what young players to get rid of, what to keep. But to get that experience for OKC, I mean, to be in the 10th spot right now for them, as young as they are, that's huge. But the next step for a team like that is we need to get in a play-in game, and hopefully 2. If we get to get in the first round, that'd be awesome, because now that's how you grow as a franchise. So I'll be watching them. It'll be interesting to see how those young guys react.
Yeah. And we talked all about the East, and one team we haven't mentioned, and they have, I mean, I got to give them credit all season long. They have been pretty consistent. Sacramento Kings, 47-31. They're gonna have the number 3 spot. It's an outside chance they could catch the 2 spot. But Mo, first time they made the playoffs, I think, in almost 20 years for sure. Just a great job by Mike Brown out there with that team.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, they're going to lose in the first round. So, that's a given. I mean, in the first round, they're either going to play, right now, they're going to play the Lakers or Golden State. So they're not going to win that series probably. So, but hey, in my opinion, but a great year, unexpected, something to build on for sure. I mean, maybe they can, but unfortunately, it is the Wild Wild West this year. So at the 3rd spot, unlucky for you, you're going to have to play Golden State or the Lakers.
Yeah. 2 teams that are playing much better basketball.
Two teams that have won championships, and 2 teams that have been there too.
Yeah.
But that's another growth. So we finished 3rd. We got to realize, what, finishing 3rd is all great and everything, but we got to focus on winning a playoff series now. So how can we add to our team to do that?
Yeah. Let's go to the East right quick. As wild as the West is, is as solid as the East has been. It's been Milwaukee, Boston, and Philly all season long. And really, you could put Cleveland in that fourth spot. Those top four, they've probably been that way since Christmas.
Yep. Yeah. And I mean, you know, it was Boston for most of the season. Then the Bucks jumped ahead of them because I think they won 16 in a row or something, whatever they won.
Yep.
So they jumped ahead of them, and credit to them, they stayed ahead of them. But there's 4 games left, and the Bucks are 2 games ahead of the Celtics. I don't know if they play each other coming down the stretch, but if not, that's pretty much set. I don't think Philly can catch Boston for the second spot because they're 3 games back. They're not going to catch Boston. And the Cavs are 2.5 behind Philly. They're not going to catch Philly. And the Knicks are 3 behind Cavs. They're not going to catch them. And the Nets are 3 behind Knicks, so they're not going to catch them. So it's pretty, like you said, it's set. Now the 7, 8, 9, 10, Miami, Atlanta, Toronto, and Chicago, they have some movement that can be done here because there's only 1 game, 2 games to separate all of them. But you're looking at, you know, we've talked about this, Boston, Milwaukee, and outside chance Philly to come out of the East. And the battle for the first spot is not only for home court, but it's also for the bracket area. So if the Bucks finish first, then they're going to play Miami, Atlanta, Toronto, or the Bulls in the second round. Then they play the Cavs and the Knicks in the first round. Then they play the winner of the Cavs Knicks in the second round. That's a lot different than if Boston finishes second, they're going to play Miami or Atlanta in the first round. Then they have to play Philly in the second round, and that's a big test that you can lose. So when you look at brackets like that, you got to look at the long run. So, you know, the Bucks say they play Atlanta and win in 5, and then they play the Cavs and the Knicks and win in 5 or 6. Now they're resting while Boston and Philly are just knocking each other out in a 7-game series. So that's why I give the advantage maybe a little bit to Boston. But any of those 3 teams, mostly Boston and Boston and Milwaukee, Philly could sneak in there.
Milwaukee finishes up with Washington, Chicago, Memphis, and Toronto.
So they should win 3 out of 4 of those, and then they're done. I mean, you know, if you win 2 of those, and you look at what happens to Celtics, you might be able to rest your guys for the last one. But they learned last year they shouldn't rest them until you have home court because that cost them last year when they lost the home court by 1 game to Boston and lost in Boston.
Yeah, Boston has Philly. Boston plays Philly.
So that's a huge game for Philly. Yeah. So that's a doubler. So right now, but at this point, Philly's 3 games back. So you win that game, you knock that down. There's an outside chance because it's a doubler. But by a doubler, I mean you get a win and you put a loss on someone ahead of you.
They have Boston, Toronto, and Atlanta.
So they're looking at 3 wins, and then that Boston game becomes their chance to get to the second spot if they do.
I'm sorry, Paul. Boston has Philly, Toronto, and Atlanta.
Oh, so you know, if Boston wins against Philly, it's over, and even if they lose, they win those other 3 games, it's over anyway. They get the second spot. Yeah. That's all. These are all things that drives coaches crazy, and advanced scouts. You know, advanced scouts are the scouts that scout reports on the team you're about to play. And I did that for 5 years in Dallas. And you know, if I was in the Wild Wild West now, you know, usually like if I was the Bucks scout right now, I'd be scouting Miami, Atlanta, Toronto, Bulls. I'd probably just focus on Atlanta and Miami and put together my report before I have the final touches. But in the West, you gotta have a basis report, the basics for 6 teams, and that might come down to the final night. And those books are notebooks. their 60-page notebooks. So,
Wow. Wow.
I remember one night I was with Dallas, and it was either Portland or somebody else that were going to, or Memphis, were going to play in the first round. And I picked Memphis and put most of my effort in that because the next morning you have to hand out your report. So I had my report for Memphis, but I had part with Portland. But I was that last night Portland lost in overtime, and I was the happiest guy in the world at 1 a.m. that I didn't have to stay up all night to finish a Portland report.
Hey, Mo, we got to get out of here, but I would like to touch briefly on the. It looks like the Players Association is about to come up with a new CBA with the league. As a former player, I don't know how much you follow this now, and I know you guys fought to help these guys get everything they get today. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, as a retired player in the Retired Players Association, the current Players Association has been very kind to us and putting money in our funds for insurance and surgeries and grants. You know, there's players that played in the ABA and played in the early years of the NBA that needed surgeries and couldn't afford them and didn't have insurance. So that money that the current Players Association and NBA puts aside for us is very important to a lot of people. So we keep our eye on it, but we don't have any say on what goes on in the current collective bargaining agreement. But from what I see, it was interesting to me because early in the week, Adam Silver came out and said, "I think we're getting close." And then at the end of that day, he said, "I don't know if it's going to get done." And that was probably a negotiation ploy. But it looks like we're getting ready to sign a 7-year deal that puts them through 2030, which is good because they have one of the strongest deals, one of the longest times between strikes and lockouts, because it's a 50-50 split between owners and players of how they split the profits. And the profits being not only ticket sales and all that stuff, but merchandise. And the biggest thing is TV money. That's a multi-billion-dollar business, TV money in the NBA and advertisement. So the owners and the players split that evenly. How the players make it is in different ways, raising the salary cap, increasing minimum payment, all that stuff. And I think there's been some changes. What I read, like they're going to smooth over the salary cap. By that it means, for people out there that don't understand, there's a salary cap in the NBA, but it's a soft salary cap. So let's say the salary cap in 2016 was $70 million for a team. That means you can pay your players all your players a total of $70 million in a year. However, you could go over that. Say you're going to pay an extra $10 million to get LeBron James. You go over that. That means you got to pay that $10 million plus another $5 million that goes to the league owners and players. That goes into a pool. It's called a luxury tax. Well, in 2016, the salary cap, because of the CBA agreement, went from $70 million a team to $94 million a team. So it increased by almost $25 million a team, which means the players got that somehow. Free agents, renegotiations, all that. So they put in they call it a smooth salary cap where there can only be a max of a 10% increase. So that means instead of salary caps going per team 70 million to 94 million, it would have been 70 to 77 million. Anyway, so that saves the owners money. A big change that I just saw today that I looked at, the new CBA agreement will allow NBA current players and WNBA current players, active players, to invest in NBA and WNBA teams while they're playing. You could never do that before. The rule was no owner of an NBA team can play while they own the team. So that's changing, which is going to change. Like we know LeBron has talked about having a team in Las Vegas. So now he could actually be part owner and play, where last year he couldn't do that. So that's going to open up, and it lets people, players that are making that kind of money now, they, maybe they have a little more involvement. So if I'm Giannis and I'm in a small market in Milwaukee and I'm making $300 million or whatever, but now I'm going to own 10% of the team, I'm going to stay here longer, right? So that was one of the big changes I saw. They're also changing luxury tax. They're putting another level in there. They're 65 game minimum to make it to the All-Star game or MVP, all those things.
Do you like that? Do you like that?
Yeah, I think it's gonna. I thought it was gonna go a step further in that. That you only get paid for the games you play. I thought they would. They're leaning more towards that. I bet that was the starting point, and they settled for this, which will eliminate some load management possibly. They're also They're looking at putting in an in-season tournament in December. It's going to be here in Las Vegas. So that's a model after FIBA leagues. FIBA leagues, you can win the FIBA Cup in the first part of the season, FIBA Cup at the end of the season, the FIBA Cup total. They have all these cup games, and they're looking at doing that next year. That's going to be interesting. It raises more money, pays players more money. But I don't know if I like that or not. We'll see.
Do you think, hey Mo, do you think the partnerships we see with sports betting is just raising the monies that are available?
Yeah.
In all the leagues.
Yeah, that's actually another change that current players can now represent betting entities, DraftKings and that. They're not allowed to. I don't know what the wording is, but they're not allowed to say who they should bet. Give people information on betting, but they're allowed to be faces of, like you see, Jamie Foxx is the face of DraftKings or whatever. Now NBA players are going to be allowed to do that, and that's a big money maker for them. So, and the other little thing, NBA now has 15 or 16 players. They have 12 active, and then they have, two-way players that go to G League and NBA. In the past years, you've had one two-way player that you can pay, maybe $1 million to when you play in the G League and on your team. They're expanding that to 2 players. So what the Players Association gains by that is it gets another 30 players as two-way players involved in the NBA as players in the NBA Association. So that's a bonus for them. So there's give and take. I'm just glad they're working it out because they have a good thing. There's no reason to get stubborn. Everybody's making money. There's no need to get stubborn. Give and take. They're a classic give and take. We want to limit the salary cap, but we'll give you another two-way player. We want to limit the max contracts a little bit, but we'll give you you can be a face of a gambling. All that is give and take. It makes sense.
Right. Hey man. The NBA Players Association does it better than any other players union.
Yes, they do. Yeah.
And professional sports.
I'm surprised that more sports don't try to find out how they did that. How do you do that? Well, most of it is 50-50. You win, I win, right? I don't think any other sports like that at all. I don't think. Yeah.
Well, Mo, it's been great, brother, as usual. Hey, make sure to check us out, Believe.com. You can get this show and past shows, BLEAV.com. We'll be back at our regular Monday night, 9 o'clock time next Monday.
We'll have the playoff breakdowns. We'll have who won the Final Four and more good stuff.
Yeah. For Big Mo, Paul Mokeski, I'm Rickey Hampton. Peace. Hope your team wins tonight. Take care, everybody. See you next time.